I did not plan to go down this rabbit hole. Information just multiplied. Such a hairy situation. It's Wabbit season, y'all.
Welcome to the voicemail box of your local friendly necromancer. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 12 a.m. to 3 a.m. Please leave a detailed message on which human, animal, or vicious hellbeast you would like to resurrect. Your call will be returned within 3 business days to book an appointment. Please ensure to have your down payment of your soul or firstborn child, or the soul or firstborn child of another being if you do not have one, at the time of your appointment. Thank you.
Welcome back to the local necromancer's coffee break, where we transcend this boring ass human realm to absorb all of the paranormal juices. I'm your host, Wrenna. I'm an author, paranormal investigator, ghost magnet, and clumsy human falling down the rabbit hole with Alice on our way to a murderous wonderland. This week's episode was supposed to cover 3 or 4 different urban legends from different places across the United States, but then I discovered one that sent me spiraling through Google. Wow. I went spiraling through Google on the hunt for some blood-chilling knowledge on the Bunny Man. And you know, when one of your best friends is nicknamed Murder Bunny, and you find an actual murder bunny, you can bet your ass I'm going down this rabbit hole. Just a slight trigger warning before we go into today's episode. This does feature, unfortunately, the torture and killing of both animals and humans, including minors. So be aware, this is not the case for the faint of heart, or if you don't like that stuff, you might want to skip this episode. So let's hop down this bunny trail together, shall we? Picture it. Fairfax County, Virginia, 1970. It's a mid-October evening, and you are visiting family in the town of Burke. After attending an Air Force Navy football game, you and your fiancé return to your uncle's home around midnight and park in a field across the street. It feels like any normal night, until you notice someone running from the bushes behind your car, and an axe smashes through your passenger window. This happened to first-year Air Force Academy cadet Robert Bennett and his fiancée around October 19th, 1970. The dates can differ between sources. With their passenger window obliterated, they noticed a man dressed in white outside their vehicle, with prominent, long bunny ears atop his head. As Robert hurried to drive away before their assailant could strike again, the man could be heard screaming, "You're on private property, and I have your tag number." After this, the Washington Post states that he literally skipped off into the night with his wood-handled hatchet still left in the couple's car. This was the first sighting of the Bunny Man, and it was far from the last. Almost 2 weeks later, the Washington Post revisited this case in an article titled, "The Rabbit Reappears." A block away from the previous attack, a construction security guard named Paul Phillips noticed a man in a monochrome white, gray, and black bunny suit on a porch of an unfinished home. The Bunny Man began hacking away at one of the wooden support posts with an axe, and when Paul approached, the man threatened him, stating, "All you people trespass around here. If you come any closer, I'll chop off your head." Seems like a friendly guy to me. I'd like him. Paul retreated to grab his handgun from the car, but the Bunny Man fled to the woods without a trace. And a copy of the police report provided to Fairfax County researchers, investigator W.L. Johnson revisited the construction office. After he left, he was given information from an employee, stating that the employee received a call after investigator Johnson left from someone who called himself the Axe Man, stating, "You have been messing up my property by dumping tree stumps, limbs, and brush, and other things. You can make everything right by meeting me tonight and talking about the situation." Not ominous at all from a, guy with an axe running around the town just striking at people and support posts and God only knows what else. But when the police held a stakeout at the reported meetup location, the Bunny Axe Man stood them up like a bad date. A few days later, however, a resident came forward stating that her son knew who this mysterious Bunny Man was, and that other children in the area had not only seen him, but they'd been with him. I don't entirely know what that means, and I honestly don't think I want to. Why would a grown man in a bunny suit be hanging around a bunch of kids? I don't understand. And everyone wonders why so many of us have Easter Bunny trauma. I mean, I remember a few years back, I say as if it wasn't 8 years ago, that I was in a children's musical called Knuffle Bunny, where we had a giant Easter Bunny costume. And I remember all of us joking about how traumatizing that costume looked. So all I picture right now is that costume and somebody running around wielding an axe with that. The kids insisted that this Bunny Man was a teenager, but later admitted to the investigator that They'd never seen him at all, and had only heard their friends talking about him. It was like the town's biggest game of serial axe-wielding telephone. Before long, lack of evidence forced both the case of the Axeman and the first attack on Robert and his fiancée to be closed. One would assume that this giant rabbit was either a non-existent being framed like Roger, or a disgruntled citizen who really hated people on his property, or even within like 10 miles of his property. I mean, really, just don't get near this guy. He just doesn't like people. Kinda relate. That's probably not good. Over 50 more calls were made to the Fairfax police about Bunny Man sightings, ranging from more threats over trespassing to a report that the Bunny Man ate a local man's cat. To this day, there have been over 500 potential encounters ranging outside of Virginia as far as Maryland and apparently even Pennsylvania? It definitely has to be southern Pennsylvania because I have never heard of this before and I live in Pennsylvania. And now more than a few people have claimed to know where this hairy fellow started out, with countless variations to his villain origin story available on the internet. Many believe the Bunny Man to be Douglas Griffin, who was reportedly held in an asylum near Clifton, Virginia in 1904 after murdering members of his family on Easter Sunday. Clifton residents were concerned about having these patients, or inmates as they were called, so close to their homes and children, which eventually resulted in the asylum being shut down. The inmates were then transferred via bus to a nearby prison, but they wouldn't complete their journey. Their bus crashed near a bridge in Clifton, but stories differ of whether this was a sheer accident or an inmate-driven escape plot. Most of the inmates and the driver were unfortunately killed, but 10 convicts fled the scene. Police scoured the area, recovering 8 of the 10 inmates, but 2 remained at large, Douglas Griffin and a man named Marcus Walster. As police continued their search near the Clifton Bridge, they uncovered a series of harrowing sights, almost a dozen half-eaten bunnies, and a body hanging from the bridge belonging to none other than Marcus Walster. Rigor mortis had long set in, and in his hand was the infamous Bunny Man hatchet. Nearby, they discovered a footprint in the mud, with an eerie message written within. "You'll never find me, and you know it, too." Signed, the Bunny Man. Douglas Griffin was never found, but his reign of terror lived on. The next year, Halloween 1905, tragedy struck the Bunny Man Bridge yet again. Local teenagers had gone to explore the bridge and never returned home, only to be found later hanging from the bridge much like Marcus Walster, with their throats cut and gashes ripping through their abdomens like skinned and gutted rabbits. Further investigation revealed that the wounds were made by a hatchet. On yet another Halloween night, a group of 7 teenagers braved Bunny Man Bridge for a party. Adrienne Hatala was one of them. She was familiar with the stories of this murderer and found herself wary of the scene, and her gut instinct saved her life. A dim light approached the bridge, and around midnight, a bright flash severed the darkness. Her friends' screams echoed, and she was left helpless to save them. In the aftermath, she found her friends' lifeless, mutilated bodies hanging from the bridge, and a bloody axe stuck in their car windshield nearby. She sought help, but her pleas were silenced, and she was later charged with the brutal murders of her friends. These Halloween massacres actually continued apparently in 1913, 1949, and 1976, with an eerily similar MO. Mutilated bodies hung from the infamous Bunny Man Bridge. Now, less murderous Lover's Lane stories were also added into the mix, with our Bunny Man seemingly mimicking every horror movie trope in his crimes. In one account, a teenage couple had parked near a wooded area when a bunny-suited man emerged from the trees with a hatchet that he threw through one of the car windows before fleeing. Shortly after, an old man came out of his nearby home and yelled for the couple to get off his property. Sounds familiar. They tried to tell the man what happened, but when he wouldn't listen, they went to the police. When the older man was confronted by the police, he assured them he hadn't seen a trace of this Bunny Man. Another Fairfax resident submitted their own encounter to a blog named Spooky Appalachia, or Appalachia, depending on what region you're from, of when they encountered the Bunny Man in the 90s. They were walking home from school like any other day when they passed a man in a bunny suit. They continued on, but soon realized the man hadn't left. He was following them from a close distance, and every time they turned to face him, he would be standing behind them, staring. They raced home and locked their doors, thankfully never encountering Bunny Man again. However, there have been eerily similar reports of activity even as recent as 2018, when a man's body was discovered near Bunny Man Bridge. The media was quick to say that there was no connection to the infamous legend, but residents remain hesitant. Probably for good reason. Many folk strongly believe in this murderous legend. Others, however, have solid backing to debunk claims pointing out discrepancies in multiple of the accounts. There is no record of a Douglas Griffin, nor was there ever an asylum in Clifton. Lorton Prison, where the inmates were reportedly being transported to when their bus crashed near Bunnyman Bridge in 1904, didn't actually open until 1916. And also some records list an old Clifton library as their main source, a building which has never existed. Many of the reported murders, assaults, and encounters have never been verified by legitimate sources and remain hearsay among locals and Bunnyman believers. However, the encounters of Cadet Robert Bennett and Paul Phillips were documented in local papers and police reports, giving stake to the other claims of this axe-wielding rabbit's existence. So, we ask, who really is the Bunnyman? A disgruntled resident who hates people being in his general vicinity? An escaped inmate from a local asylum who decided it was time to go hunting wabbits? An undead fiend hell-bent on murdering woodland critters and becoming the bedtime story parents use to make their children behave or else they'll be hacked apart by a hatchet? We may never know. And with that fun little food for thought, I believe you all to tell me your theories about Bunnyman and who he really is. Let me know in the comments what you think about all these different stories, and drop a like if you enjoyed this unexpected little side quest my brain decided to take me down. Now, do you have any urban legends or haunted encounters, any kind of true paranormal stories of your own? If so, there is a Google form in the description where you can actually submit your own stories to be read on this podcast, or you can shoot me an email at localnecromancerscoffeebreak@gmail.com, which I will also put down in the description, along with all of my resources that I've used for today's podcast. I would love to hear all of your spine-tingling encounters, so please send me as much as you can. Do not worry about length. I want them all. I will see you all next week, so until then, stay safe, don't sell your soul, drink lots of coffee, maybe sprinkle a little water in there, and if you're going under a bridge at midnight and you see a guy with an axe and a bunny suit, do not tell him that Twix are for kids. Just let him have his cereal. Okay? Love you all. Bye!